History often tells its stories through the lives of men. This is especially true in the dark alleys of organized crime, a world painted with the grim faces of godfathers and kingpins. We know their names, their legends carved into the annals of law enforcement and popular culture. Yet behind these towering figures, and sometimes standing right beside them, were women of immense power and cunning. They were not mere accessories or damsels in distress. They were strategists, leaders, and architects of vast criminal empires. Their stories often overlooked, their influence underestimated. These women navigated a treacherous world dominated by masculine brutality, using their own unique blend of intelligence, charm, and ruthlessness to climb to the top. The tales of these women are more than just footnotes in the chronicles of crime. They offer a startling look into a different kind of power, one that had to be wielded with more subtlety and precision. While their male counterparts could often rely on brute force alone, these women had to be smarter, more persuasive, and infinitely more careful. They built networks, managed finances, and commanded loyalty in ways that defied the expectations of their time. Their journeys reveal the complex interplay of ambition, survival, and societal constraint. To understand their lives is to understand the hidden dynamics of power and the extraordinary lengths some will go to seize it, regardless of the rules society has written for them. Their stories matter because they challenge our preconceived notions of criminality. We are conditioned to see crime as a man's game, a violent spectacle of testosterone-fueled ambition. But the lives of women like Virginia Hill, Stephanie St. Clair, Sister Ping, and Maria Licciardi force us to look again. They show us that the desire for wealth, control, and respect knows no gender. These women were not simply products of their circumstances, they were active agents who shaped their own destinies, for better or for worse. They were entrepreneurs of the underworld, their ventures built on illicit goods, human desperation, and sheer audacity. As we delve into their lives, we uncover a world far more nuanced than the simple black and white narratives of good versus evil. We see women who were at once loving mothers and ruthless operators, community benefactors and fearsome criminals. They were complex, contradictory figures who lived by their own codes. By bringing their stories out of the shadows, we gain a fuller, more complete picture of the history of crime itself. We begin to see the intricate web of relationships and ambitions that truly powered the underworld, a world where women were not just present, but were often the silent, unacknowledged queens. Virginia Hill was born in the small, dusty town of Lipscomb, Alabama, in 1916, a place she was desperate to escape. Her childhood was marked by poverty and instability, fueling a fierce ambition for a life of glamour and wealth. She was a firecracker from a young age, known for her sharp tongue and even sharper wit. At 17, she left her broken home behind and headed for Chicago, the beating heart of American enterprise, both legal and illegal. It was the 1930s, and the city was a playground for the mob. Virginia, with her stunning looks and magnetic personality, quickly learned that her charm was a currency more valuable than cash. She started as a waitress, but her ambitions were much grander. She soon caught the eye of the city's most powerful men. Her first significant connection was with Joseph Epstein, a key bookmaker for the Chicago outfit. He was captivated by her, not just for her beauty, but for her intelligence and discretion. Epstein became her mentor, teaching her the intricate ways of the underworld, from money laundering to collecting information. Virginia was a quick study. She understood that in this world, knowledge was power, and loyalty, or the appearance of it, was everything. She cultivated an image of a fun-loving party girl, a role that allowed her to move through mob circles without raising suspicion, all while absorbing every detail. Her rise to power was not through violence, but through seduction and financial acumen. Virginia became the ultimate insider, a trusted confidant to some of the most dangerous men in America. She was linked romantically to a string of high-profile mobsters, including Joe Adonis and, most famously, Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. These were not just affairs, they were strategic alliances. She became the mob's courier, carrying cash and messages across the country. Her socialite status provided the perfect cover. No one suspected the beautiful woman with the lavish lifestyle was a crucial cog in a national crime syndicate, a keeper of its secrets and its money. Virginia's authority stemmed from her unique position. She was the woman who knew where all the bodies and the money were buried. The mob trusted her implicitly with their finances, earning her the nickname the Flamingo for her long legs and penchant for high living, but also the mob's treasurer. She was not a gangster's moll, she was a partner. She owned property, managed accounts, and held the Syndicate's secrets with a vice-like grip. In a world where men held all the official titles, Virginia Hill carved out a space of immense, unspoken power, proving that the most effective weapon in the underworld wasn't always a gun. Long before the civil rights movement gained national momentum, a woman of indomitable will was carving out her own kingdom in the streets of Harlem. Stephanie St. Clair, born in the French Caribbean, arrived in New York in the early 1920s with little more than her fierce intelligence and an unshakable belief in her own worth. She had witnessed firsthand the injustices faced by black people, and she was determined not to be a victim. Harlem, amidst its cultural renaissance, was also a hotbed of illegal enterprise, particularly the numbers game, an underground lottery that offered a glimmer of hope to the city's poor. St. Clair saw an opportunity not just for wealth, but for power. She did not ease her way into the numbers racket. She stormed it. In a business run almost exclusively by men, she quickly established herself as a force to be reckoned with. She was elegant and well-spoken, often appearing in public in stylish clothes and a turban, projecting an image of regal authority. But beneath the polished exterior was a core of steel. She was unafraid of confrontation and fiercely protective of her territory and her people. She understood that to succeed, she needed the community's trust. She paid out winnings fairly and on time, earning a reputation for integrity that made her policy bank one of the most popular in Harlem. Her authority was built on a foundation of community support and sheer nerve. She became known as Queenie, a title she wore with pride. When corrupt police officers tried to shake her down, she refused to pay. Instead, she took out advertisements in Harlem newspapers, exposing their corruption by name. She fought the system from within, using her illicit wealth to challenge the very institutions that sought to exploit her and her community. Her defiance was legendary. She was not just a crime boss, she was a folk hero, a woman who dared to stand up to the white establishment and win. St. Clair's success eventually attracted the attention of the white mob, led by the notorious gangster Dutch Schultz, who saw the lucrative Harlem numbers game as his for the taking. When Schultz tried to muscle in on her territory, Queenie declared war. She forged an alliance with another powerful black gangster, Bumpy Johnson, and fought back with a ferocity that shocked Schultz and his crew. She organized resistance, targeted his operations, and even tipped off the authorities to his illegal activities. While she could not defeat Schultz's organization entirely, her defiant stand cemented her legacy as the undisputed Queen of Harlem. Stephanie St. Clair's criminal enterprise was centered on the policy racket, a simple form of lottery immensely popular in working-class communities. Players would bet on a 3-digit number, often based on dreams or omens, and the winning number was typically derived from publicly available figures, like the last 3 digits of the daily U.S. Treasury balance. It was a high-volume, cash-heavy business that required meticulous organization and a network of loyal agents. St. Clair's operation was a model of efficiency. She employed an army of collectors who went door to door, gathering bets and building relationships with customers. Her system was built on trust, a commodity she cultivated with care. Her main ally, especially during her war with Dutch Schultz, was the formidable Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson. Bumpy was a tough and intelligent enforcer who became St. Clair's trusted lieutenant. While Queenie was the strategist and the public face of the operation, Bumpy provided the muscle and street-level command needed to protect their turf. Together, they formed a powerful duo that held the white mob at bay for years. Their partnership was a blend of St. Clair's business acumen and public defiance with Bumpy's strategic violence and underworld connections. They were a formidable team, fighting for their piece of the American dream, albeit an illegal one. St. Clair's methods were a mix of business savvy and bold confrontation. She ran her numbers bank like a legitimate enterprise, ensuring her customers were treated fairly and her employees were well paid. This earned her unwavering loyalty from the Harlem community. When threatened, however, she was ruthless. She used the press as a weapon, outing corrupt officials and turning public opinion against her enemies. She understood the power of information and was not afraid to leverage it. Her fight against Dutch Schultz was not just a street war, it was a public relations campaign, and she was its brilliant, fiery orchestrator. Ultimately, St. Clair's reign as the sole numbers queen began to wane. The end of Prohibition meant that powerful mobsters like Dutch Schultz and Lucky Luciano turned their full attention to other rackets, including the numbers game in Harlem. The sheer violence and resources of the mafia were overwhelming. After Schultz was assassinated in 1935, a hit ordered by Luciano took over his operations, striking a deal with Bumpy Johnson. St. Clair, seeing the writing on the wall, gradually stepped back from that front lines. She had made her fortune and her name. She retired a wealthy woman, living out her days as a respected, if feared, elder in the community she once ruled. Her legacy was not one of downfall, but of a strategic and dignified exit, a queen who knew when the battle was over. Cheng Shui-ping, known to the world as Sister Ping, presented a humble face to the world. She was a short, unassuming woman who ran a small variety store in New York's Chinatown. To her neighbors, she was a helpful figure, a part of the community fabric. But behind this mundane facade was one of the most sophisticated and ruthless human smugglers in history. Born in a poor village in Fujian Province, China in 1949, Ping experienced hardship from an early age. This background gave her a deep understanding of the desperation that fueled the desire for a better life in America, a desperation she would later exploit with chilling efficiency. She arrived in the United States via Hong Kong in 1981, part of the wave of immigrants seeking new opportunities. However, Sister Ping's ambition was not to work in a restaurant or a garment factory. She quickly identified a far more lucrative business smuggling people. She started small, arranging passage for fellow villagers from Fujian. Her early success was built on a reputation for reliability. She promised to get people to America, and in the beginning she delivered. Word of her services spread like wildfire through the villages of her home province, where the dream of Gold Mountain was a powerful lure. Her authority grew from her intricate network and her ironclad business model. She was the Dai Jie, or Big Sister, of the smuggling world, a title that mixed respect with fear. She commanded a global operation that stretched from China to Central America and finally to the streets of New York. Sister Ping was not just a smuggler, she was a banker and a loan shark. She charged exorbitant fees, often up to $30,000 per person, for the perilous journey. Immigrants and their families would pledge their future earnings to her, becoming indentured servants to the gangs she controlled in the United States, until their debt was paid. This system of debt bondage was the key to her power. It ensured a steady stream of income and gave her immense control over the lives of thousands. She was the gatekeeper to the American dream, but her gate came with a heavy price. Sister Ping was revered by some as a benefactor, a modern-day Moses leading her people to a promised land. But to law enforcement, and to the many who suffered on her dangerous voyages, she was a snakehead, the leader of a criminal smuggling syndicate, and one of the most prolific and heartless of them all. She was the mother of a dark, sprawling enterprise built on hope and exploitation. On Sister Ping's criminal empire was a masterclass in global logistics and, honestly, ruthless finance. Her primary crime was human smuggling on an industrial scale. She created a sophisticated pipeline that moved tens of thousands of undocumented immigrants from China to the United States. Her methods were varied and constantly evolving to evade law enforcement. Some clients were flown to nearby countries with lax visa requirements, then guided across the U.S. border. Others endured horrific journeys, packed into the dark, suffocating cargo holds of rickety fishing boats for months at a time, a voyage that many did not survive. Her most crucial allies were the members of the Fuk Ching Gang, a violent street gang based in New York's Chinatown. This gang acted as her enforcers. When the smuggled immigrants arrived in America, they were often held in safe houses by the gang members until their families paid the final installment of the smuggling fee. If the families were slow to pay, the gang would resort to kidnapping, torture, and threats to ensure collection. This brutal partnership allowed Sister Ping to maintain a distance from the violence while ensuring her debts were always honored. She was the banker, they were the muscle. The downfall of her empire began with a disaster that she could not control. In 1993, a cargo ship named the Golden Venture ran aground off the coast of Queens, New York, spilling nearly 300 starving and terrified immigrants into the cold surf. 10 people died in the chaos. The incident shone a global spotlight on the brutal reality of human smuggling and put Sister Ping squarely in the sights of the FBI. The Golden Venture was one of her operations, and the tragedy transformed her from a shadowy underworld figure into a publicly recognized international criminal. She became a top fugitive, a symbol of the cruel trade in human lives. After the Golden Venture incident, Sister Ping fled to China, where she lived openly for years, protected by her connections and wealth. However, her luck ran out in 2000 when she was arrested in Hong Kong during a sting operation. Extradited to the United States, she faced trial in New York. In 2006, she was convicted of conspiracy, money laundering, and human trafficking and sentenced to 35 years in prison. She died in a federal prison in Texas in 2014, never again tasting freedom. Her legacy is a grim reminder of the dark side of globalization, an empire built on the exploitation of human hope that ultimately crumbled under the weight of its own cruelty. In the male-dominated world of the Italian mafia, Maria Licciardi shattered every ceiling, rising to become one of the most powerful and feared bosses of the Neapolitan Camorra. Born in 1951 into a family steeped in crime, her destiny seemed preordained. Her father and brothers were all high-ranking members of the Licciardi clan, a key player in the Secondigliano alliance, a coalition of Camorra clans that controlled vast territories in and around Naples. From an early age, Maria was immersed in the culture of organized crime, learning its codes of silence, loyalty, and violence. She was not groomed for leadership, but for the traditional role of a mob wife. However, Maria was far from traditional. She possessed a sharp intellect and a strategic mind that her male relatives quickly came to respect. She was known as La Madrina, the godmother, and La Piccolina, the little one, due to her small stature, a nickname that belied her immense power. Her path to leadership was cleared by tragedy and imprisonment. In the 1990s, a series of bloody turf wars and police crackdowns sent many of the Camorra's male bosses, including her brothers and husband, to prison or to an early grave. The clans were in disarray, and a power vacuum emerged. It was in this chaotic environment that Maria Licciardi stepped up. Rather than letting the clan crumble, she took the reins. Her authority was not simply inherited, it was earned through her exceptional ability to mediate disputes and forge alliances. She was a brilliant diplomat in a world of brutes. She brought warring factions together, brokered truces, and managed the clan's sprawling business interests with a level head. Under her leadership, the Secondigliano alliance not only survived, but thrived, expanding its control over drug trafficking, extortion, and construction rackets. Maria Licciardi's rise was revolutionary. In the hyper-masculine culture of the Camorra, a woman holding ultimate authority was unheard of. Yet she commanded the respect and fear of hardened killers. She proved to be more pragmatic and less prone to the reckless, ego-driven violence that often destabilized other clans. She ruled from the shadows, a quiet, calculating presence who made decisions that affected the lives and deaths of hundreds. Her reign demonstrated that in the cutthroat world of the Naples underworld, the sharpest mind, not just the strongest arm, could wear the crown. Maria Licciardi's primary criminal activities were sophisticated and far-reaching. She presided over a diverse portfolio that included international drug trafficking, particularly cocaine and heroin, and the deeply entrenched practice of pizzo, or extortion, squeezing protection money from local businesses. One of her most notorious innovations was her strategic involvement in the sex trade. She allegedly sanctioned the use of very young girls from Albania, paying their families a small sum with the promise of a better life, only to force them into prostitution in Italy. This move, while incredibly profitable, was said to have caused a rift within the alliance, as some old-guard mafiosi considered it a violation of their code of honor. Her operation was a family affair, reinforced by a network of clan loyalties. Her main allies were the leaders of the Contini and Malardo clans, who, together with the Licciardi clan, formed the powerful Secondigliano alliance. She acted as the chairperson of this criminal board, mediating disputes and setting overall strategy. Her method was to rule by consensus when possible, but by decree when necessary. She was a ghost, rarely seen in public, issuing her orders through a trusted circle of lieutenants. This low profile made her incredibly difficult for law enforcement to track, allowing her to run a multi-million-dollar empire from the shadows of Naples for years. Licciardi's downfall was a slow and patient hunt. After a disagreement over a shipment of pure heroin led to a bloody turf war in the late 1990s, a warrant was issued for her arrest. She became one of Italy's most wanted fugitives. For nearly 2 years, she vanished. She moved between safe houses, protected by the Camorra's Code of Silence, or Omerta, and a network of loyalists. She continued to run the clan from hiding, her authority undiminished. Her phantom-like existence only added to her legend. In 2001, police finally caught up with her, arresting her as she was driving near Naples. She showed no emotion, a testament to her steely composure. After serving time in prison, Maria Licciardi was released in 2009. Law enforcement believed she immediately resumed her position at the top of the clan, once again becoming a central figure in the Neapolitan underworld. She remained a ghost, her influence felt but rarely seen. Her story continued until she was arrested again in 2021 at a Rome airport, allegedly on her way to visit her daughter in Spain. Her legacy is one of quiet, ruthless efficiency. She proved that a woman could not only survive in the brutal world of the Camorra, but could master it, becoming a true godmother whose influence has haunted Naples for decades. The stories of Virginia Hill, Stephanie St. Clair, Sister Ping, and Maria Licciardi paint a vivid picture of women who defied every societal and criminal convention. They operated in different eras and different underworlds, yet they share a common thread: an unyielding ambition to seize power in worlds designed to exclude them. From the glitzy parties of Hollywood's mob to the gritty streets of Harlem, from the desperate voyages across the Pacific to the shadowy alleys of Naples, these women proved that cunning, strategy, and ruthlessness are not masculine traits. They were not simply accomplices. They were architects of their own criminal destinies, changing the history of crime in the process. Society's view of female criminals has long been skewed by stereotypes. Historically, women in crime were often portrayed as tragic victims, manipulative seductresses, or one-dimensional molls clinging to the arm of a powerful man. Their own agency and intelligence were frequently dismissed. The woman behind the man trope obscured the reality that women like St. Clair and Licciardi were often the brains of the operation, the strategic thinkers who ensured the empire ran smoothly. They were not just breaking the law, they were breaking the ironclad rules of the patriarchy that governed both sides of the law. Today, our understanding of women in crime is slowly becoming more nuanced, though old stereotypes persist. The rise of female cartel leaders and gang bosses in the 21st century has forced law enforcement and the public to recognize that women are capable of the same levels of ambition and brutality as men. The cultural fascination with figures like Griselda Blanco, the cocaine godmother, shows a shift towards acknowledging female criminals as formidable figures in their own right. We are beginning to move beyond the simplistic archetypes and see these women for what they were: complex individuals driven by the same desires for power, wealth, and survival that have motivated male criminals throughout history. The legacies of these four women are a crucial part of this evolving narrative. They demonstrate the diverse paths women have taken to power in the underworld. Virginia Hill used charm and financial savvy. Stephanie St. Clair leveraged community support and public defiance. Sister Ping built a global empire on human desperation. And Maria Licciardi commanded a mafia clan with quiet, strategic brilliance. Their stories compel us to rewrite the history of crime, not to glorify their actions, but to present a more complete and accurate account of its intricate, hidden world. A world where queens and godmothers ruled with an authority all their own.